Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Man on a Motorcycle. I'm not an ordained minister. I never claimed to be a theologian. Just a guy who rides a motorcycle a lot, spends a lot of time with God. So today I wanted to talk about Genesis 32, 22 through probably 31. Um, so this one started, last week or so. Uh, if you don't know, or if you haven't heard or whatever, my wife has been battling invasive ductal carcinoma, breast cancer, for since March. And I guess she's in some support groups. And one of the ladies in the support group, I guess, mentioned that she regretted having the scars because she had a mastectomy, and it just scars your body up, something terrible. And my wife was talking to me about that, and this one in particular came to mind. And I was sitting there thinking while she was telling me that, I was like, well, how many times have we been blessed by God and he leaves his mark? I mean, if we persist and we really, really persist and God chooses to bless us, doesn't he leave his mark? And the things that I came up with when I was talking to her was like, just the miracle of childbirth. Women get stretch marks. It happens. I know that some people don't think that's very attractive, but that's something that's beautiful. It's been left behind by God. Even when Jesus died on the cross, all the scars, all the beating they took for us, just to bless us, God left his mark. So let's continue. We'll go on to this. So what I'm talking about here is when Jacob wrestles with God. And this is what popped in my head whenever my wife was talking about all this stuff. That night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. After he had sent them across the stream, he sent over all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. So I want time out there. So there's certain things about Jacob that you got to know. During this time, he's going to try to make amends with his brother Esau, the one that he cheated out of the birthright. But what a lot of people, and I'm sure you know, but Jacob has this study Bible I have. It's great because it kind of just put it down there for me. One of Jacob's weaknesses is when faced with conflict, he relies on his own resources rather than going to God for help. So that night, before he's going to go see his brother, he sends all of his possessions away. That has some significance to it for me, because I don't think you can fully take on the blessings from God until you decide to release all that you have. Now, let me tell you about Jacob. Jacob was very, very, very possessive of his children, especially for Rachel, because Rachel was like the love of his life, and Joseph at that time was born. And it's almost impossible in my mind to see him separating himself from Joseph, because Joseph was the favorite, okay? So he sends all these people away, and then after he sent them across, Joseph was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with this man. Okay, so when Jacob was left alone, so he has no possessions. There's nothing there but him. God appears to him because he's relinquished all his possessions. He doesn't have anything to rely on at this time. Okay? Then he wrestles with him. Okay? Well, that's the one thing about Jacob. He has constantly been wrestling with God and other people for all his life. I mean, the name Jacob itself means deceiver or liar. So, I mean, can you imagine growing up and being called, "Hey, liar. Hey, come over here, liar." I mean, so, and I can also think that maybe there's an internal struggle there because all the years of him having this as a reminder, every time someone says, "Hey, you're a deceiver, you're a liar," it has to come back to mind what he did to his brother, and these years and years and years have gone by. We know for at least 14 years because he had to spend 7 for Leah and then another 7 for Rachel. So anyway, but the man saw that he could not overpower him. Now, this kind of sticks out to me a little bit, and the reason being is because there's one thing that I kind of perceive, or I believe that one thing that God cannot overpower you with is your free will, And I think at this time, Jacob finally decides to fully follow God. And he grasps onto God. He hangs on to him because he's finally at that point. He's up against the wall, and he needs that blessing from God. And he's given everything up now. And now that God's there, he just hangs on to him. And God can't overpower him because that's the will of Jacob. Jacob's got this will, and he's persistent, and he's not going to let God go, right? So the man, God, touches Jacob's hip. Now, God can't mess with your will, but he sure can mess with you, and he'll leave his mark on you if he wants to bless you, right? And he says, then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." Well, that means the blessing's coming, right? I mean, there's a lot of playing, especially in Genesis or the Old Testament, where they talk about day and light, night, light, darkness. But we're talking about the daybreak coming. So that means all this fighting, all this wrestling that you've done in the past with God and other people and yourself, the daybreak is coming. And God's saying, you got to let me go, dude. You got to let me go because I can't bless you where I'm at. I can bless you where we're going. Does that make sense? If we stay here, I can't bless you like I can when we go that way. All right? And daybreak is coming. The light is coming. So you got to let me go to where you're going, not where we've been. Okay? But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Here we go again. Jacob, you've already been blessed. You're already there. I mean, God has come to you, and you decided to give yourself to God, and you decided not to let him go this time, and you've already been blessed. So then it goes, the man asks, "Well, what's your name?" Here we go again. Like God had an off day. Like he doesn't know who Jacob is. I mean, he already told him he was going to bless him if he went back to his family's land. I mean, God doesn't have off days. I think this was kind of a test. This was saying, who do you say you are? Because what other people say you are, or who other people say you are, doesn't matter. Who do you say you are? And Jacob says, my name's Jacob. Then the man said, your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with man and have overcome. See, like I said, God asked him what his name was, but God already knew who he was. Come on, man. But God decided, you know what? You are going to be the father of the 12 tribes. Israel will be your name from here on out. Because you've struggled with me, you've struggled with people, you've struggled with everything in your life, and now you've decided to be persistent and insist that I bless you. So I'm going to bless you. And he blesses him fully. Right? So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, it is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared. Takes me back to the cancer thing for a minute. How many times have we battled something, or there's something that may be life-threatening, or maybe it's just anxiety? Because, I mean, at the first of this, Jacob's just going through some massive anxiety because he's about to meet his brother, and his brother's bringing 400 men with him. And, the struggle is real, right? And how many times we sit there and pray for a blessing? Well, we don't realize that we're face to face with God already. And he's sitting right there. All we have to do is latch on to him and hang on to him. Right? Then the sun rose above him, and he passed Peniel. And he was limping because of the hip. Well, like I said, God's always, in my opinion, God always leaves his mark whenever he blesses you. I mean, there's always going to be that time when you're persistent and you ask for God's help and you decide to cling to God. He's going to leave his mark. I just think that sometimes we don't realize the blessings that were there that are just right underneath our nose. And all we needed to do was cling to God a little more, and he would bless us. Sometimes he might leave his mark. Sometimes it might be a pretty rough road, but if we ask God to bless us, God's going to bless us. Like I said last week, God doesn't have grandchildren. All he has is children. And if you have children, then you know exactly how he feels about you and how he wants to please you. But you got to ask for it. But just remember, God's not where you used to be. He's where you're going. And he can't bless you back there. He can only bless you where you're going. So let him leave his mark on you. Be blessed. That's all I have for tonight. God bless you.